I just didn't feel the connection when I went to church, and yeah, I just felt like the churches never had, I guess, the authority to represent God. So I always felt like church was just like they just use God as an excuse for them to make money, basically, was my ideology. So so I just didn't really believe too much in the church, but obviously I still went to church because I still, believe in something. All that kind of threw me off, and it just it made me not want to even be a part of that religion, basically. So I just felt like yeah, I just felt like they needed to do a lot of like house cleaning. They needed to clean up. I would say I was definitely into Buddhism, but more of the like Zen Buddhism. I like Zen Buddhism because I guess they always kind of ask questions, or they have a way of asking questions that kind of gets you to think a little more. So that's kind of what I was drawn to in the beginning. Even before going to like Zen or like doing that stuff, I would just meditate on my own. Sometimes I'll meditate for like half an hour, almost an hour. So I just knew that it was something that I needed to practice. I was just very toxic. I lived alone and I was living in a basement, so it was very dark in that basement. There was like very little sunlight. There was like no sunlight whatsoever. It pretty much felt like I was just living in hell. It just felt very hellish, and I was very toxic too. I could definitely say I wasn't at a good place mentally. I started learning a lot about the reptilians, and I really got heavy into it. I learned more about how they have child sacrifices or human sacrifices, and I've heard things that like they're pretty much walking amongst us. They're some of our politicians, our leaders, and things like that. So I always felt like it was just helpless. Like I always felt like, everybody's working together basically to go against humanity. I felt like there was just no hope. I felt like the human race was just a slave race. That was my type of like ideology, way of thinking. That was just how I was seeing it, and I was just feeling helpless basically. Like I felt like there was nothing I can do. It made me realize that the spirit world is real, and there was just so much information in that book that I was just mind blown. I was just, it was just. So I was very attracted to that information, and yeah, pretty much immediately I just started ordering more books from Master. I pretty much just started changing, thinking that way, to think that, this is just a temporary world, this is just a short time here, but like the real world is the actual spirit world. So the more I heard that, the more I kind of just um, solidified that belief. You know, the more I believe that he's right. That's our real home is the spirit world. I would say when I pretty much after reading the Laws of Eternity, I read the Laws of the Sun, and pretty much when they start talking about self-reflection and pretty much the idea that you're not alone and that everything is being watched and recorded and things like that, that definitely made me shift my mind, because I always felt like we're alone. If you commit a crime, and nobody knows about it, you're fine kind of mentality and things like that. But then the more you read, the more you realize, like, everything is governed by laws, everything is governed by karma and things like that. So yeah, I think it was pretty much after reading the Laws of the Sun that I felt like I needed to change completely. I felt like Happy Science just basically made me realize that there is good out there, and pretty much the darkness that I was consuming myself in was just it's just alternate information, and pretty much whatever information we're exposed to will resonate to. So the more I was exposed to Happy Science teachings, the more peace of mind I felt, the more I felt hope for a better future and things like that. So yeah.